Today we're going to be talking about film cameras. We're going to take a break from our regular digital programming to talk about 35mm film cameras, traditional film, point and shoots, and SLRs. And if you're a beginner photographer, you may be overwhelmed by the options. Even if you're not new to photography and you've been shooting digital, you may think, where do I even begin with film cameras? How much money should I spend? And who should I trust on the internet? We're going to go over the most popular choices, but most importantly, we'll be focusing on affordable film cameras. Okay, most of the cameras we'll be discussing will be $150 thereabouts or under, because you don't have to spend a lot of money on a film camera to get absolutely beautiful results. Let's break it down. So this is your typical point and shoot film camera. Okay, some of them have zoom lenses, some of them have fixed focal length lenses. This is a Pentax SPO, a very popular camera back in the day. The reason why you really shouldn't spend too much on a point and shoot film camera is because they break. Okay, eventually they fail. I mean, the components are already really old. So this one is a good example of what can happen. So the lens is working fine. Look at this ridiculous zoom lens here. Okay, lens is working fine. This thing takes pictures, no problem, winds the film, rewinds the film. Unfortunately, the LCD no longer displays anything. And this is a very common problem. And it could happen to you. You know, even if you spend hundreds of dollars on a point and shoot film camera, as is suggested sometimes, once the LCD goes, it's over. Okay, there's no one that's going to repair it. I would only recommend a point and shoot film camera if it's really, really cheap, or if the cost to you is negligible. Sometimes you can find point and shoot film cameras for like $5 or under, and in that case, sure, why not? If you're at a garage sale or a vintage store and you see one for $5, I mean, you could pick it up. What's the big risk, right? We will be discussing a few affordable models for point and shoots later in the video, but let's move on. The next category I want to talk about is the manual SLR. What I mean by that is you, as the photographer, are responsible for advancing to the next frame, cocking the shutter, and focusing the lens. Okay, there is no autofocus on these, and they generally all work pretty much the same way. You set your aperture on the lens itself, very easy. You set your shutter speed here. Some of them have aperture priority. You cock the shutter like this, fully, press the shutter button, and it shoots. Okay, so if you're testing these out at a vintage store or something, one quick way, if they are a purely mechanical camera, that is, they don't require batteries to activate the shutter, what you can do is set the shutter to different shutter speeds, kind of estimate whether it sounds right. So this is 1/1000th of a second, so it should be really quick. Cock the shutter. Okay, I mean, the human eye cannot detect the differences between 1/1000 and 1/500, at least I can't. So one of the issues with these cameras, point and shoots either work or they don't, but these could have shutters firing at improper speeds, which will make it really annoying to get your photos exposed correctly. Now, if the camera has been CLA'd, that is properly cleaned, lubed, and adjusted, it won't be a problem. But quite a lot of these are just floating around. Maybe they've been sitting around the basement for the last 20 years, so you can never know if they've been CLA'd properly or not. These are very popular among film students today, probably because some film photography teachers require you to use a manual SLR, because that's what they started on, and that's the simplest form of photography. It's photography boiled down to the exposure triangle, right? I got my start in film photography on one of these. They are a joy to use. They look very nice, and the worst case scenario is if it breaks, it still looks really good on your bookshelf. We're also going to be talking about automatic SLRs, or just simply SLRs, the precursor to DSLRs. Okay, so these cameras are severely underrated today. What's best, they're more affordable and versatile. Some of them even share lenses with digital cameras. If you already have a Nikon digital camera system, a DSLR kit, you can just reuse all your lenses on a Nikon F80. The F80, and we'll be talking about specific models in the second half of the video, but the F80 especially is one of the most underrated SLRs of all time. It is dependable, it is ergonomic, it's a joy to use, it's got a glorious bright viewfinder, and they take modern lenses, autofocus lenses. The prices have not inflated nearly as much as traditional manual SLRs. So you can find really good deals, and you can cherry pick the absolute best cameras that were ever made. This strange looking camera here, the Terran Eye, is actually a rangefinder. Focusing a rangefinder is a bit different. Now, I personally never really got along with rangefinders, but I'm the odd one out. A lot of people swear by rangefinders. They can even work with them faster than they can with SLRs. But you really should try one of these in a store to see how you get on with it before spending too much money on a Leica. Because I don't have as much experience with rangefinders, we won't be covering them as much in the video, although I do have a few models that I know are very popular and affordable and loved by many photographers that we will mention. Okay. No amount of huffing or puffing from me will convince you not to bother with these Contax cameras if you are dead set on getting one. The Contax T3 I've seen for $1,900 on eBay. Contax T2 is relatively affordable at $1,000, and the Contax TVS, which has a zoom lens, is still going for $300. Now, I've shot with a Contax T3. Believe it or not, I have owned one. Here are a couple of images from the Contax T3. It's a great camera, but it's not worth $1,900. The camera itself, the T3, handles like a bar of soap, and I was afraid to drop it the whole time, and that's when it was worth about $700. Let's look at some alternatives. You may have heard a lot of good things about the Yashica T4, but it's $475. Instead, why not go for an Olympus AF10 Super? You may not be able to tell the difference. It has a great 35mm f3.5 lens, just like the Yashica. This thing was released in 1991, and it takes 2 AAA batteries. It's a fully automatic camera. Set it and go. Similarly, consider the Konica Big Mini BM201, a camera released in 1990, again with a great lens. The only downside is it takes the CR1238 batteries, which cost about $10 each. These are a couple of other great choices. Okay, you'll notice the Nikon L35AF is a cult classic at this point. It's a very popular camera. Takes 2 AA batteries, very convenient. Has a built-in flash, autofocus, auto exposure. It's a fully automatic camera with an amazing lens. Pentax PC35AF is considerably cheaper, and probably the one I would get if I was looking for a cheap film camera. I wouldn't spend more than $100. That's another good one. Now, the Olympus XA and XA2, they are very different, despite the fact that they're named almost identically. The first one, the Olympus XA, works more like a rangefinder and features aperture priority. The second one, the XA2, think of it as a point and shoot. It has 3 different zones that you can select for manually focusing, but other than that, this is a pretty much compose your shot and go kind of camera. Very popular among street photographers today. Okay, the big category. Okay, the 5 main brands that I would recommend to beginners are Canon, Pentax, Nikon, Olympus, and Minolta, simply because they're going to be the easiest ones to find. You're going to see more deals, more bundle packages, and more importantly, they're going to be easier to resell down the line if you choose to do so. The Canon AE1 program has been recommended on every forum thread that I can find about beginner SLRs. And here's the little secret that's not so much a secret anymore, but there's a camera called the Canon A1, which pretty much gives you everything the AE1 gives you and more. Even more egregious situation is with the Pentax K1000. Oversized, very crude. Now, I don't have any problems with it. It's a fully mechanical, very nice SLR, but instead of the K1000 for 120, why not consider the much lighter and, in my opinion, sexier Pentax MX for $20 more. Okay, we're breezing through these cameras, guys, because I don't want this video to take hours, but these 3 Nikon cameras are very affordable. The Nikon FA, the Nikon FE, which was my first film camera, and the Nikon FM10. Frankly, at this point, it's about what you can find a good deal on and what looks nicer to you. These are 2 images I took with my Nikon FE and a very lowly Nikon 50mm basic beginner Series E. Now on the left, you can see an image taken with the Acros 100 film. Such a forgiving film. It just won't allow you to blow the highlights, okay? And you can see so much detail in the highlights. It's one of my favorite films. Whereas on the right, is another great film, Tri-X. It's a very punchy, contrasty film, very popular with photojournalists. I guess what I'm trying to say is your choice of film is much more important than your choice of beginner SLR camera. Continuing on with Nikon, I have to mention the FE2 and the FM2 because they are significant upgrades from the FE and FM respectively. So you don't need these two cameras. They do offer some quality of life improvements, so I just wanted to mention them here. Next we have Olympus. Now, if you've ever looked at one of these or held one of these, you'll know what I mean when I say these are some of the sexiest cameras. I mean, they just look really, really nice. And the OM2N is an improvement in many ways for a beginner shooter today because it uses batteries that are much more easily accessible. Both of these are great cameras. And we have Minolta. Minolta continues to be underrated. First we have the SRT line, which kind of all look like the SRT 101 that we have on the left. The SRT 101, 201, 102, 202, 303 are all great. You might even save money in the long run because you will have access to amazingly cheap and excellent Minolta lenses that are available for this system. So the X700 and the X570 especially, these are just highly underrated cameras. You get access to that amazing Minolta glass. You don't pay much money at all, and you still get program mode, aperture priority, and manual mode. Automatic SLRs, or simply SLRs, two amazing cameras from Canon are the Elan 7, also known as the EOS 30, and also the EOS 1N, which is a super professional camera, one of the best film cameras ever made. I mean, this is top of the line stuff, and these days you can buy it for $180. Both of these cameras are highly advanced with advanced metering modes. They will give you more features than you could possibly need. If you manage to find one of these Canon Rebels, okay, for $10 or $20, slap a 50mm on there, there is nothing stopping you from taking amazing photos. Okay, you do not have to spend even $150 on a film camera because you need money for film and development and all that good stuff. The Rebel 2000 absolutely gets it done. Okay, it has program mode, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual mode, and has advanced metering. In Nikon land, we have a couple models here I'm going to throw out. The Nikon F80, also known as the N80, and Nikon F90X, also known as the N90S. Both available for under $100. Amazing value for money. One advantage of the N90 actually is it takes 4 AA batteries, which are very easy to find, unlike the Nikon's CR123A battery. Now we just have to mention these big beasts because if I don't, I feel like some film people are going to come to my house and murder me. So the F100, it's a tank of a camera. It's weather sealed, everything you might want, including 100% coverage of viewfinder. And the F4, of course, we have to mention, iconic camera. It kind of represents the bridge between analog and digital. And here you can kind of see the design influences from both directions. Finally, we're going to cover rangefinders. If you want a Leica, okay, I have a Leica M6 here as an example. If you want a Leica, there is no rangefinder that's going to be a substitute for a Leica, right? Just like if you want a Rolex watch, you should buy a Rolex watch, not a two-door watch or anything other than that, because you're going to constantly wish you had just bought the Rolex watch in the first place. Okay, so if you really want that Leica, there is no other rangefinder that I know of that actually comes close in terms of materials, finishing, feel. Maybe the one that comes closest is the Voigtlander Bessa R2. I'm not trying to equate these two cameras. If you want a Leica, get a Leica, okay? But just know that there are more affordable rangefinder options out there. For example, the two brothers, the Olympus 35 RC and its bigger brother, the Olympus 35 SP, are both really fun rangefinders with manual mode and aperture priority mode. Next up, two more budget options, the Minolta Himatic E and the Konica C35. And I bundled them together because these are both automatic cameras. You know, you focus rangefinder style, but the camera selects the shutter speed and the aperture for you. And lastly, we have the Canonet QL17 and QL19. QL17, okay, gives you that 1.7 aperture, but the QL19 gives you 1.9. Not a huge difference. Okay guys, this took me a very long time to put together, and I will share a Google Doc of this in the comment section of the video. For each camera, I have the type, the year it was first released, the lens that's either built in or the mount that you'll have to buy, the weight of the camera in grams, the shutter speed range, the film speeds that the camera either recognizes or that you can set manually, shouldn't be really an issue, as most of them cover the fastest films available, but a few of them don't, so just look out for that. The flash, either it's built in or what the fastest sync speed is, whether the camera has autofocus, that's the AF column, whether the camera offers you some kind of auto exposure, it's the AE column, and finally the different modes available to you. P is program, A is aperture priority, S is shutter priority, M is manual. The battery options that the camera takes, and the price in minty used condition on eBay as of the making of this video. Now, obviously prices are going to depend on a whole set of factors. You may be able to find one of these cameras for $5 at the garage sale. Prices of these cameras fluctuate, prices have kind of bottomed out and maybe creeping up again thanks to the resurgence of film photography. The film camera checklist. Is the viewfinder clear? Is the lens clean and clear? Does the shutter fire accurately at all speeds? And are there any light leaks? Light leaks are especially important on these older mechanical SLRs, right? That's something that can go very wrong. And does the light meter work? If you need the camera light meter to assist you in metering, it's important to determine whether it's actually giving you accurate meter readings. As long as you can answer yes to all of these questions, I think you should be happy buying film cameras at any budget you can find. Finally, guys, I have a little secret to tell you. Whatever your first film camera is, you're going to love it. As long as the photos come out acceptable, you're going to fall in love with it the same way people develop an affinity for the IKEA furniture they've assembled. A film camera is part of a workflow. It's part of a process. You feel like you're creating something because there's this whole bunch of steps necessary to actually see the picture at the end of the day. This is my Nikon FE with that very affordable Nikon Series E kit lens. And I just want to show you guys some of the earliest shots that I've actually taken with this camera and this lens combination. These shots aren't even very good, okay, but they are special to me because I had a lot of fun shooting with the film camera. Okay, when you start shooting film, even if you've been shooting digital, it's kind of like learning photography all over again, okay, because there's a whole bunch of other factors involved. Are the images super sharp? No. Some elements are out of focus, some elements are improperly metered, some highlights are blown, some shadows are underexposed. But no matter what, you will love your first film camera, okay? So it's not too important which one you get. Once you actually start shooting, you're going to be way more obsessed with what film to use and how you're going to scan the photos, subject matter, as opposed to comparing cameras. If you made it to the end of this video, congratulations. If you have friends that are interested in film photography, please share this video with them. And as always, subscribe for more.